Antakaran, the inner psychic functions. 4 constant companions that are necessary to investigate and guide our path of development will now be introduced, the Antakaranas. They are known as the inner senses, also known as, in Sanskrit, Antarendriyas. Antarendriyas. They enable and guide our psychic and mental processes, and through them we can feel, think, understand, and differentiate. This wonderful word, Indriya, it relates to the Lord of the world in Sanskrit, which is a concept known as Indra. And the Lord of the world finds itself expressed through 14 different Indriyas. 5 Gyanendriyas, the 5 organs of perception. These are sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. And the 5 Karmendriyas, the organs of action, which include locomotion, digestion, vocation, procreation, excretion. The inner senses, the Antarendriyas, consist of the manas, which is the mind, the buddhi, the intellect, the chitta, the consciousness, and the ahamkara, the ego. And the order at which they're related is manas, mind, governed by the buddhi, intellect, governed by ahankara, ego, governed by chitta, the consciousness itself. Manas, mind, is the realm of desires, feelings, and thoughts. It is the connecting link between the subconscious and the conscious. It files away the impressions and perceptions from the external world in the storehouse of memories and brings them out again for the appropriate reason. The mind, by itself, does not judge or make a choice. It indiscriminately records all impressions, just like a video camera or tape recorder. It is the buddhi, the intellect, that carries out the assessment and filtering of what reaches consciousness and what goes back down into the subconscious. On the basis of the impulse received from the intellect, the appropriate action is carried out by the mind. The mind is constantly active in the waking state and also when dreaming. We cannot stop the mind, but we are capable of guiding it. As we purify the mind by consciously thinking positively and repeating mantra, therefore ridding it of baser tendencies, the divine self, the Atma, the Paramatma, can then radiate through it. Buddhi, the intellect, and this is distinguished from the intelligence that already exists in the genetic makeup of humans, processes, coordinates, and filters the sensory impressions. It decides which of them we accept and pursue further. Buddhi has also 2 aspects, one egoistic and one selfless. The egoistic part is controlled by the ego and our weaknesses, whereas the selfless and non-personal principle judges and decides on the basis of ethical maxims. This is known as viveka, discrimination in Sanskrit. Viveka is like the butter, which is extracted from the cream of the buddhi. Through viveka, we are able to differentiate between truth and untruth, right and wrong, good and bad. Viveka leads us to the knowledge that the material reality is relative and guides our endeavors towards the absolute, the eternal. So this buddhi and its ability to perform viveka, this intellect and its discrimination, is absolutely vital on the spiritual path. Our intellect develops in 2 different ways. Firstly, through everything we have learnt from childhood up to the present time. This logical knowledge helps us to cope with the tasks of daily life. Secondly, it is formed through analysis, reflection, concentration, known as dharana, and meditation, dhyana. Wisdom and discrimination, viveka, ultimately develop from these, from dharana and dhyana, from this reflection and meditation. In relation to this, an interesting question is often asked. Who or what causes our mental condition? It is produced by the intellect. Is it produced by the intellect? Or conversely, is our way of thinking influenced by our inner state? The first is correct. The intellect creates our mental condition. But occasionally a situation arises that it is unable to master. Then we lose control of our thoughts and emotions, as for example in a fit of rage. How often have we said or done something when we were unable to control our emotions, which we greatly regretted later on? That is why the cultivation of viveka is so tremendously important, not only for our worldly existence, but also for our spiritual life. Chitta, consciousness, forms the basis of our perceptions and knowledge. Like buddhi, it is shaped by the experiences of life. Previous experiences, upbringing, culture, and education, they all mold the way in which we perceive, judge, and value. Chitta determines the basic tendencies and coloring of our psyche. Ahankara, the ego, literally means, I am the doer. All our feelings, perceptions, ideas, and desires are inextricably linked to the ahankara. The ego is that psychic authority that creates the illusion that we are autonomous to all other independently existing individuals. From that, we naturally derive the idea that the external world that confronts us is also an independent, separate reality. However, Vedanta philosophy, which is also the philosophy of yoga, teaches us to see the unity, God, behind the variety of appearances. Only when we accept this reality, not just rationally, but realize it within our consciousness, are we able to overcome the barrier of the ego and find unity in the Atma, in the self. The following mantra, in which we place all our actions into God's hands, helps us to attain this way of thinking. Naham karta prabhu deep karta, maha prabhu deep karta hi kevalam. It means, I am not the doer. It is God who does through me. God alone is the doer. And with that, we'll pause our reading of the hidden power in humans. Thank you for listening. So many wonderful terms introduced. So those are the 4 Antarendriyas, the inner senses, the manas, the mind, buddhi, the intellect, ahamkara, the ego, and the citta, the consciousness. Thank you.